welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Our hosts, Sri Rajgopalan, Peter V.S. Bond, and Brian Gildenberg, explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPG Guys.
Hello and welcome to the CPG Guys podcast. I'm, of course, Sri, co-founder and co-host of the CPG Guys and also co-founder and partner of Think Blue, your key to unlocking your profitability potential. As builders, connectors, and amplifiers, we shape the future of commerce to drive your growth. Please do listen to my older daughter, Ria Raj's music at www.riaraj.com. That's R-H-E-A-R-A-J. And my younger daughter, Laura Raj, is a member of the Geffen Records Cat's Eye band, whose Netflix docuseries on the making of the band is set to release late this summer. While my wife, Kavita Raj, has her own podcast, Lights, Camera, Convo, on iHeartRadio on all streaming platforms. This is a very special episode shot live at the Cannes Lion International Festival of Creativity. Peter and I are lucky to be here in France, and we were able to shoot several episodes. This is one in such a series. But before we get to our series, we want to ask you to help spread the word about this community we've created in the CPG Guys. Beyond sharing a podcast with your friends, if you're using Apple Podcasts or Spotify as your preferred learning platform, leave us a rating as it helps feed the algorithm, makes us more findable by CPG retail people like you looking for education and entertainment. We're happy that the CPG Guys is part of an impressive collective of highly rated podcasts, including CPG Scoops with Lisa and Jennifer, and the FMCG Guys with Daniel, Efrain, and Christine. Links to our podcast, our sister cast, and the social media profiles of my daughters, Ria and Lara, my wife's podcast, may be found in the digital liner notes of this episode. Finally, also joining me for some of these episodes this week is Peter Bond, my co-host and best friend of the CPG Guys. And when he's not co-hosting, he serves as the partnership acceleration lead at Flywheel, a division of Omnicom that helps enterprise brands improve their SEO and ACM, growing their e-commerce businesses. And now, on to the podcast that you've downloaded. This episode is brought to you live from the Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity in Cannes, France. And we're thrilled that Amazon Ads is actually working with us right here at the Amazon studio to be actually recording podcasts live. And our guest today is none other than Jeff Cohen, evangelist for Amazon Ads. Jeff, welcome to the CPG Guys. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. I know we've been talking about this moment for a number of months. I'm so happy that we've been able to make it happen.
Gosh, I think I met you at Possible. I flew over to Possible exclusively to meet you just to do this. And here we are actually doing it, man. So I want to say thank you on behalf of the CPG Guys for following up and letting us do it. Can you take 30 seconds and, if you see evangelist Amazon Ads, what's the 30-second overview of what that is?
Yeah, so my name is Jeff. I'm a tech evangelist for Amazon Ads, and the easiest way to describe it is I work with our 4,000 partners worldwide to help them understand Amazon Ads technology, how to integrate into it, how to sell it, and really engage their brands with it, and also speak to the general Amazon community around what Amazon's doing, how we're doing it, and how it impacts the things that brands are trying to do to grow their business.
How awesome. So we're going to jump right in here into the Q&A section of the podcast. So Jeff, I looked up your career. I trolled you on LinkedIn, sorry. You actually touched textbooks.com. You've even worked for Wheels, which I'm familiar with through all the fleet services I've enjoyed over my lifetime at large companies. And then principal evangelist as Amazon. Take us through the years. You got out of college. How did you get here to Amazon? And then what learnings would you want to pass on to the next generation who'd want to follow in your footsteps?
My career took after when I was at Wheels. It's awesome that Wheels is one of those companies that if you are involved in fleet services, you know who they are. But if not, it's a whole industry you're not familiar with. And I was getting married, and my wife was starting her residency in Columbia, Missouri. And I moved to Columbia and needed to just find a job. And the largest employer in town that was not part of the university or part of a healthcare system or a government office was this company called Missouri Book Exchange, or MBS. And I went to go work for them as just a general marketing corps comm guy, which was my background up until that point. And I built them a corporate website. And this was 2003. 2004. And then the CEO brought me into the room and he's like, I love the website that you built. He's like, I have another website I want you to build. And, I think it's a new direction we can take our business. And that was textbooks.com. They owned the domain textbooks.com, but it was a redirect to Barnes and Noble because we were a subsidiary, a privately held subsidiary of Barnes and Noble. So in 2005, I got into the textbook space, and in our first year in that space, 50% of our business was actually on Amazon and eBay because people were coming direct to buy through direct type in traffic, but then they were also buying it through the marketplaces. Fast forward, staying in that industry for a number of years. In 2012, 2013, I was doing USPS auctions with some people that I had met. Literally the stuff that fell off the truck was being resold like Storage Wars thinking, right? And it was being sold at USPS auction. And we built a warehouse and over 15,000 square feet within the warehouse. The business, he had grown it to several $1 million, and he had built technology. And we went to go find technology to scale our business. And we found that the whole third-party system marketplace didn't have technology in the space in 2013, 2014. And so I started working with them when they launched Seller Labs in 2014. And that's what kind of led me to Amazon. Is Seller Labs was one of the innovators of third-party technology. We were one of the first to integrate in Amazon ads. And then one day somebody was talking to me and they wanted me to come work for their company. And I made a joke and said, well, the only company I would ever leave Seller Labs to go work for is Amazon if they, wanted me to be like an evangelist for them. And here I am 2.5 years later as an evangelist for Amazon ads. So interesting how the world takes turns. So I guess the lessons, right? The lessons that are learned from that. One is you don't know where opportunity is going to come from. So when you see it, take advantage of it and, go with what you feel is right. I think the second thing is that you need people who are your champions in life. And so when you have people that are really your champions in life and help you be successful, it can open up new doors that you've never really imagined.
Right. Jeff, welcome to the podcast. It's good to finally have you on. I know you and I have been running into each other at numerous conferences over the last year. So I'm glad we're able to get this done. And what a great venue to do it at. Right?
For sure.
Of course. So let's double click down. I think you have one of the most interesting titles in this industry, Principal Evangelist. What does a day in the life look like? To help dimensionalize for our audience how you interact with brands in this objective for Amazon ads.
Yeah, I think what's great about my role is that no day is similar to another day that I've had. So I'll have, within a month, I'll have anywhere from 20 to 30 interactions with different partners that we work with. And that could be working with them and their tech team to understand new technology that Amazon has, or it could be them with one of their brands to understand how to integrate that technology into the media mix that they're doing. I also spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, as we all do. And I get to share with the larger community what's happening at Amazon. And I like to think of it as that I try to take a lot of the marketing technical speak and break it down into the practical, what's this really mean for a brand? What's this really mean for a tech provider? And I think those are probably like the two primary things that I do on a regular basis. And then finally, it's just really staying up to speed on what's happening in the industry. What are the trends? What are the macro views that are occurring, right? One of the things I think we both get to experience through what you guys are doing and what I do is that we hear from so many people that we can start to see macro trends. And I bring those back to the Amazon team to share with them those type of trends of what's happening, to be talking about how we need to be evolving our product to meet those trends today and into the future.
Jeff, do you think you're aware of another, like a podcast that may be very active on LinkedIn that you may be aware of? Know anybody?
Do I know anybody
podcast that's very active?
I don't know any podcast.
We don't either.
We don't know either.
Yeah, I don't know any.
That's why we came here to change that, right? So I'm actually a deep believer that learning, there's a ton of opportunity on LinkedIn. Like the more time, you don't have to read large books and you don't have to read 20 newspapers. If you're on LinkedIn, you get access to short form content, long form content, articles. Like, is that a primary source of learning for you as well? It is for me.
I think it is. And I'll say that you have to learn over time who your trusted people are and who you need to ignore, right? So like any social platform, there are people that are out there making noise, and then there are people that are out there that are making really good, solid content. And I think our job as content ingestors is to kind of cut through what's being put out there, is it something, here's what I think of. Is it something that can actually practically be done? Is this being shared with me by somebody who is doing this hands-on keyboard, or is this somebody who's just trying to kind of speak like they know what they're talking about? That's one of the things I try to think about. Two is I really try to think through who is their ICP, right? Who is their ideal customer, and how does this apply to them? And one of the challenges that we have with social media is that people try to speak to a very broad audience. And one of the things I actually love about what you guys do, and I learned this the first time Peter and I sat down, was, you guys can be very targeted into the types of brands that you're trying to develop content for, the people who work at those brands that you're trying to develop content for, and, the challenges that they have. And so you have some people that are very niche down, and you have some people that are very high level. And when you take all of that, you can start to get a collective picture of what's happening.
So he bit the apple, man. He did talk about the CPG guys. So we're thankful. But Jeff, I want to run to, you built a career here. You're the evangelist now for Amazon ads. You're meeting with hundreds of your providers hundreds of your partners on a daily basis. We talked a little bit about learning. Let's jump to mentorship, right? In a career that spanned a few decades now, mentorship must have been a way of life, right? You've been receiving mentorship, but you're also giving mentorship, yep. I'm sure, to many, as you're doing to the CPG guys today. Are they different? And then have you had influential mentors who've actually influenced outcomes in your life and career? And do you pass that down to the next generation?
That's a fantastic question. I don't think it's one I've ever been asked before. So I actually appreciate that. I think we all retrospectively can look back in our lives and see who mentors are. I don't know that I was always the best as I was growing up at realizing that those people were maybe mentors at the time that they were mentors, right? But I do look back today and I see like my first boss, and I see things that he did and doors that he opened for me and opportunities he created for me that created him as a mentor in my life, right? I definitely try to give back to many in the community. What's awesome about our community is that Amazon it's still day one, right? And we talk about that and we say that, but let's think about that in practice. I was at a conference about 2 or 3 months ago. And at this conference, they were honoring some of the best users of the technology that was hosting the conference. And one of the people that were being honored at that was a young lady who's in her, I'll just say early 20s, just to not give her age away. And she babysat my son, who is now 13. She lived in my neighborhood. And I thought it was so cool that here she is in her mid-20s being honored for what she did. And we are in an industry where she's a few years out of college. She's been doing DSP now for 3 years, that she's considered like an expert, right? She's probably not like the most expert that's ever been around, but she's somebody who has a set of knowledge that other people in the industry don't have and are still trying to build. And so, I see people like that and I see them as people we need to rise up. We need to help encourage to want to stay in this space. We want to help move them from, working in tech companies to working at brands, and working at brands to working at tech companies, because that creates just a better overall community for all of us. Because if I think back to 3 or 4 years ago, what was our biggest challenge? The challenge was that like nobody knew how to do any of this. We didn't have enough people. We didn't, and we're now, I don't think we're oversaturated today, right? I have a daughter who's starting college, and I'm like, you sure you don't want to go into digital marketing? It's a great field. It's got great opportunity for the next 20 plus years. So I think that all of us have an obligation in this space to find people who are younger, who are eager, who want to learn, and really help them be the next people. Because ultimately, and Cannes is one of the best places to see this, you walk down and there's like lineage, right, of people who worked for certain people at certain companies over time, and it's where a lot of the connections and the and the networking exists today is because of that work you put in 5, 10, 15 years ago.
One of the things, Jeff, that the CPG guys just did to also mentor and pass down is we had our first, I would say we sponsored and mentored our first scholarship winner for the omni-channel program at Cornell that we sent from Hy-Vee, which was a very fulfilling moment for both of us. And there's going to be many more that we do that as well from the CPG guys.
It's amazing.
So, Jeff, I want to put your evangelical skills to work here. We are in Cannes, the Festival of Creativity. We are surrounded by brand marketers. Evangelize as to what are the principles that these brand marketers should be using to build their brands in today's digital age.
So I think that it all starts with understanding your business and understanding your customer and understanding how to reach that customer. And then it's about building, and I know you're very familiar with this, a test and learn mentality. And I think that where a lot of brands are struggling today is in a couple of areas. One, there's a mix between what's happening in brand performance and in brand marketing. And that used to happen in two different sets of the house. And now it's starting to get blended into one. And then the other is that we're having external forces, either headwinds or tailwinds, depending on how we see them in our organization, around AI and what it's able to open up technologically, being able to process more data in a faster manner, or creatively and being able to change the way we look at creativity and how we build creativity into the campaigns that we create. And so I think that brands today and the skills of a brand leader today need to be thinking of all these things. And that's why I kind of boil it down to this really simple concept of test and learn. And if you go back to a junior high math or science class around the methodologies of testing and learning and the scientific method, it's a skill that if you implement into the overall mechanisms that you have in your business, it can allow you to build and grow over time and not make what can seem like a very daunting decision or large investment be broken down into its simplest parts. And the brands that are able to do that and the agencies and tech providers that are able to do that are finding their ability to move faster in a market that allows them to get first mover advantage by being able to implement those kind of skills.
Is it fair to say the biggest principle of what you just said here that you're personally using and embodying is the test and learn methodology? Like, don't be afraid.
We do a poor job of talking about failures. Right. Many times when we're on podcasts and talking on podcasts, we talk about our successes and we talk about case studies and we put our big numbers in front of everybody to tell people why they should do something. And what they didn't see is necessarily the failures that occurred along the way, the failures that led to that success. And, raising 3 children like I have, I've tried to encourage them that failure is a fail forward methodology, right? And I think that as parents,
one more opportunity to learn.
That's right. And it's weird little things, but in business, like that is really how we think on a daily basis. Is that, I've never been yelled at by a boss for doing something wrong. How
do you create that culture? Because that's a really interesting approach. How do you encourage people you work with not to sweep it under the rug? If something doesn't go right, to show the light of day, and why is that important?
So I learned it in a very unique way. My first job as an intern, I did a mail merge, not to overly date myself, and I sent out this mail merge to 1,000 people. And after it went out, one of the envelopes got returned, and I realized that I did not have it on letterhead, and I did not sign the CEO's name. So I went to my boss, and my boss was like, well, it's fine. This isn't a big deal. Like, let's just not tell Doug. And I was like, well, no, I kind of feel like I need to tell Doug. And so I went into Doug's office and I told Doug, and Doug looked at me and he said, Jeff, he goes, thank you. What lesson did you learn? And I said, well, I learned that on a mail merge, you need to use stationery and you need to have signatures. And he's like, great. Do you think this will happen again? I said, well, I don't know if it'll happen again, but I'm going to try my hardest for it not to. And he goes, great. He goes, just so you know, if I knew that you had messed up and you hadn't told me, I'd fire you. But since you knew you messed up and you shared with me and you admitted your mistake, let's just move forward and not have that be a problem. And so he taught me at an early age that like the lying and the cheating and the hiding was way more was way worse than the actual mistake that I made. So I think that part of that encouragement when you're thinking about applying it into your brand today or your business today is, I don't know, maybe encourage people to have lowlights within what they present, right? So when we present docs, you guys know Amazon's a doc culture. When we present docs, we have to talk about lowlights. We don't just talk about highlights. We have to talk about what improvements we would make. We have to talk about what we would do differently in the future. When we do performance reviews, we talk about what did somebody do right and where do they have areas for improvement. And so that all builds collectively to a culture where you're not penalized for making mistakes, and you're encouraged to share the learnings with the larger group.
A reminder to audience that we are recording this live from the Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity in Cannes, France, with Jeff Cohen, evangelist for Amazon Ads. So Jeff, my next question, I think you started touching the highlights of it already. People that you work with, teams, those that work under you, people around you, peers, how do you motivate and inspire a team to achieve their goals and reach their full potential?
Yeah, so I'm in an interesting role at Amazon because I'm what they call an individual contributor. So I don't have people who report to me directly, but that doesn't mean that I don't have a role in providing that type of inspiration.
Yeah, Jeff, I didn't literally mean like a line reporting, right? You talked about partners, right?
Yep.
They are equally important to Amazon as those working within Amazon because collectively you all create success.
Yes.
So I meant just people you touch, right?
Yeah, I think part of it is just being open to people want to feel heard. I do think that's a really important thing to remember is that it's
so inclusivity
is important. I get a lot of people that are like, hey, can you comment on my post, right? So I do spend time looking
that means a lot to people, doesn't it?
It does.
We get a lot of requests for, can you just give it a like, add a comment? Because you know what? It is a community and it's how we inspire people.
It is. So I think those are like the little things that you can do. I also think that, when you see somebody and you say, physically, and when you have an opportunity to interact with somebody, when you see somebody and you acknowledge, that you spent time with them, that you remember them, that you actually heard what they talked about, become really valuable as well. It becomes challenging when you meet so many people to be able to do that, but it's a skill that I'm constantly working on. So I apologize if I haven't done that to you. But I want everybody in the audience, I want everybody in a meeting to think that I'm speaking to them individually as well as collectively. And it takes time to develop that. And some of it also is a matter of sharing, right? So they want to hear my perspective of what I've learned and how they can apply it because it may trigger something within them. But even equally, I want to learn. And so I've learned to kind of not just speak, but also ask questions to receive the information because they have so much to give as well. And I think that mutual respect goes a really long way.
So beyond inspiration to achieve goals, part and parcel of that very often is leadership. And even though you don't have direct reports, that doesn't abdicate you from a responsibility.
Correct.
Of creating that culture of leadership. So my question to you is, how do you cultivate those qualities in yourself and the people around you, regardless of whether they report to you?
I think a lot of it comes down to how you interact with people on a daily basis, and you're respecting them, their project, and their time. At Amazon, we have a very doc-driven culture. So for us, that could mean reviewing somebody's doc and giving them some feedback. For our partners, it could be having a phone call with them while they're trying to make a decision of strategically what direction they want to go. Those are just things that you need to be thinking about. Like, who are your different not to break this down into like marketing terms, but like, who are your different cohorts that you interact with? What are they looking to do and to achieve? And how do you create a mutually beneficial relationship where both of you can grow through those actions? And we use the term partnership a lot, but we have to remember that partnership is a two-way street. And I think that some of our best partners with Amazon Ads are the partners who don't just look to take from us, but also look to give. And so you have to be in that give and take type of perspective. And it's also advice that I give to advertisers all the time. One of the questions I get asked very often is, well, who should I be working with? Because brands are always thinking like, should I be working with somebody different than who I'm working with? And I am quick to tell them, and I say, well, when I was at Seller Labs, we ran an agency, and I would have told you all the things wrong with your agency and why you should come work with mine. Now that I have this different perspective at Amazon, there's a cost in staying with an agency. There's a cost in moving agencies. And so I always ask, how have you invested into that partnership with that agency? Is there a way for you to be getting more out of them through the communication that you can be doing? Because we all know that investing in what we're already doing is usually more valuable than starting something for a new. But there's reasons that you need to do both. And I think you just have to kind of evaluate that on that spectrum.
Coming from the brand world, Jeff, we'd struggle with it all the time. Do we invest in new innovation or do we double down on existing stuff that's already on the shelf?
You were in the brand world?
I used to be, right?
Yeah.
I think you were.
Were we? I'm not sure.
Did we ever talk about that on the podcast?
We're like in a time warp now.
I don't know.
But Jeff,
He's been out for a couple months, so it's like we should just...
I know.
month and a half. So Jeff, in today's crazy, I want it now where immediate need states and immediacy is everything to most people, how are you personally balancing short-term results with more longer-term planning, kind of the topic we just touched?
What I believe brands need to think about is both at the same time. Because if you only focus in on the short-term results, then you're probably looking at like your current products, your current product lines, and how to optimize them. But if you don't think about what the next big thing is and how that next big thing is going to impact the growth of your business, then you're going to get caught. And I think that also exists with technology, right? And so one of the challenges that you have with Amazon and our tech and the way our tech rolls out is there's a lot of it, right? Let's just be honest. There's a lot of it. And so everything isn't applicable to you on the day that you hear about it, but you have to kind of enrich yourself and your brand with understanding it and then figure out when to apply it. And one of the great examples I use for this is Amazon Post. Right? When Amazon Post first came out, a lot of brands didn't really know what it was. They didn't really know how to use it. They didn't really know what it meant. They just knew that it was kind of this free placement on Amazon and they got impressions. But the brands who kind of invested in it and doubled down on it were starting to find that those impressions were leading to followers and those followers were potentially leading to sales, even though all the data points didn't necessarily connect. Well, here we are a couple of years later. And now posts have turned into a much more evolved product, and they're still free, but you can now boost your posts that are really working and turn them into ads. You can take your external content and bring them into post. You can use video. And so it's become more complex, but at the same time, it's become more valuable and it's been easier to draw the return on that investment back to what's happening. And so a brand has to think about when do they get in. So post is another great example. You're not too late to get in today, right? But if you've been in it for the last 2 years, you have that competitive first mover advantage. And so you have to kind of think of that with everything that's kind of happening. Another example that I have for that is an apparel company that I work with has been really trying to invest in not how to bring more products to market, but how to make their products more profitable through efficiencies of the supply chain management.
Sure.
And as they've been able to build supply chain efficiencies, they can then turn that into, okay, great. Now I can actually bring in new products because I can now do the things that weren't profitable before. I can actually do them. And so sometimes the product doesn't work today because you're missing some other efficiencies. Mm-hmm. And I see this a lot with CPG companies, and they're still using retail packaging or retail quantity sizes, and they haven't really focused on what Amazon or what marketplace type of relationship should look like. What is the case count that somebody's looking to buy? How much toothpaste do I really need? Right? I'm willing to buy more online than a single tube, but how many tubes do I need? And how do I case pack that correctly to optimize the shipping cost as well as the consumer experience. And so there's lots of different places you can spend your efficiency resources on, and they all come at different points in time in your product lifecycle.
We're here at Cannes. It is an inspiration for creativity. People are talking about the latest, the newest. Some of these are fads. Some of them will stick. We at the CPG guys are always trying to be at the leading edge of that. So I'm going to ask you, what should we, and by our extension, the CPG guys audience, be really focused on at this event and in the digital age that we're in right now that will step change how brands are able to connect with consumers and drive sustainable growth?
So you want me to try to disseminate what's a fad and what's a...
No, I'm just, yeah, that's a little bit.
I'll give you an example.
I'm just...
What should we be paying attention to?
No, I think as a brand, digesting all of this in one point in time, it's important to think about how to apply this to your business today and what it will look like in the future. And so one of the big talks here is around AI, Gen AI, creativity, how this is all kind of playing together. When I think back to the life of a cell phone, right, that's been around now for 40 plus years, but really became active in our lives probably about 30 years ago. If I had told you then that you would have a device in your pocket that was more powerful than the most powerful computer that existed, and it would be able to do everything you needed it to do and things you'd never thought about, you would have told me I was crazy. Okay. And so when we look at what's here today, we need to think about how to actually take these things and apply them to our brand. So there's like two sides. There's one that's like the curiosity, learning, playing, going out and kind of seeing what's out there to just kind of be on the forefront of technology, right? Like I use ChatGPT. I sit down with it with my kids. We generate funny images. We look at how they could apply it to the things they're doing.
Have you gone so far as to actually like learn from others how to use prompts and do
I have.
Stuff?
Yeah, I want to train a ChatGPT. So if anybody's out there and can help me, I want to train a ChatGPT type system to understand my voice and my tone. Yeah. Because I use Grammarly a lot for writing and things, but I would love for something that actually understands how I want things to be presented, and could get me 70% of the way there. I don't use it
because that's going to drive a lot of efficiency in your life.
Correct. So I don't use it for writing now because I can tell the difference between their writing and mine, but I believe it can be done. And I think that in the long run, like that's how we have to be, right? We have to have our things that we're tinkering and we're toying with, and then our things that we're testing and applying, and then take our learnings and build from that.
So let me remind our audience that you can find all of our content by simply going to a web browser and typing cpgguys.com. And if you think you or your company has some thought leadership to contribute, just like our man right here did today, drop us an email at contact@cpgguys.com. Again, that email is contact@cpgguys.com, and maybe you can join us on the podcast as well. Don't forget to drop us a rating at cpgguys.com on the navigation bar up top, because you help shape the show. That rating tells us, are we doing right? Are we having the right conversations? To our dedicated 33,000 plus followers on LinkedIn, we can't say thank you enough times. Your clicks, likes, comments, we even talked about the importance of that on this show. And all those DMs you sent out about the conversations you want to have, that's what shaped this. Jeff, I know this is a busy week for you. You made time to join us and actually talk to us about leadership, your own brand. We're deeply thankful that you did make that time for us. So thank you for joining the CPG Guys.
Thank you. I appreciate it and look forward to getting more opportunities to interact with the CPG Guys and the different events that Amazon throws.
We're eagerly looking forward to the next one, which may be grocery shop. So,
well, no, and then I hear there's something going down in Austin later this year.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
not Boston.
Austin.
Austin, indeed.
It's very relevant because it's called Unbox, and you open, like when you
that's what I heard.
The box, you unbox.
That's right. Lots of excitement about.
Put some thought in.
Of course, man. Thank you for joining me as always.
Always a pleasure,
Ken. That's a wrap of this episode. We'll see you soon in another episode of the CPG Guys.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.